hungry ghost. The end of a short walk. Coming back down Holly Street, Workditch, we looked on impulse up at the tower blocks. Anna was cheered by these signs of human habitation, but I'm uneasy. The height, the isolation, some of the windows already broken. A man the far side of Middleton Road stumbled, held himself upright, then had the legs go from under him, drunk, tipped onto the pavement. We hesitated. He did not have the drunk's magical balance, the illusion of being on a wire, an animated earth puppet. When he fell, I crossed to take a closer look. There was a dark trellis of blood running down one side of his face. His hands were also covered in blood. He held them open, away from him. I folded back the cuffs of his jacket. The wrists had been cut, dug at with a penknife or a kitchen knife. He made no move to resist me. I tied with a dirty handkerchief the wrist that was still bleeding. Anna stood off, watching. A window opened in the house. An old woman leaning out shouted that I should leave him. She knew him. The matter was in hand. The blood was now spread as if by a lawn sprinkler across the pavement and up the steps to the door, so that the man had come not as I first thought from the pub on the corner, but from here, the house. He must have returned, saddened with drink, gone to his room, cut the wrists, both of them, the left with more force than the right, and then walked out instinctively to the street where he had fallen. The old woman called him Dennis, told him it didn't matter, pushing a lighted cigarette into his mouth, where it hung like a severed lip, Dennis begging to be left alone, to die, tears running into the blood which was dry on his cheek. But the old woman stood over him. "That's right, Dennis. She was no good. You're well rid of her." Dennis asking for a letter to be read. The old woman chanting to herself, "Don't worry, she's bound to come back." A younger woman, pretty, bent over to look at Dennis's smashed face, yellow pants showing as her tight red dress lifted. She'd been painting her nails, a small crimson bottle in her hand. Dennis struggled, asking for the letter to be read. The old woman rifled his pockets, which were all empty, saying, "You see, Dennis, she wrote to you." But there was no letter. The ambulance men took over half an hour to arrive. The one in authority had not bothered to put in his top set of teeth. I walked away then. Dennis was resisting, the old woman telling him to go quietly, to let the doctor have a look at him. There were spots of blood on my feet, which were in sandals. The right one blue, the left one green. Rumour, in advance, the fact. There are models we think to follow. Spring lightning as a signature consecrates. The soil is loosened, black. Star animals bolt and shoot. Elsewhere my face presses to the window of your belly, feels the unborn feet kick out. Strong the examinations of pleasure I am cut off from. I float. Have only heard news of the light, no nearer than that. You are anchored in the workings of it. Formed, our child combines certain dusts, and you are gathered into the real, the sacred, a still unimagined place. Oak chrome. I dream the dream my father's father dreamt after he died. An oak tree, bark skin green with lichen. The walls of the garden were not old, he crossed his legs. The dream my father's father dreamt, in death sleep, in loss, his parrot, crashing against the bars, the bell of the cage. My father in the garden, holding up seed cake for his dog the terrier to jump. The dream of family, of history, of garden patch, which is old hill, stoned over, cut, fenced, burnt, rolled, planted. The oak tree, being part of the other, was his dream, tube and substance. Red chamber, yellow top. Let 20 pass and stone the 21st. I front the sea, my back to the forests. Rock pools whisper, the rumouring of mountains. Measure in units of 2.72 the distant sources of light. Attempt prophecy. I have memory, layering the bone. Shadows climbing the wall as she nears the fire. Woman, my mother, her dark nipples seasonal. So that we hugged to the apron this cold and had no urge for other. What we found in the ice we ate and were sick. Worshipped the sudden brightness above the hills, not understanding nor seeking this. Mother Glacier, the tree as dream, as family. Glimpse of fires in the forest, 2,000 years in black unshaped wood. The dream precedes consciousness, as lights on a motorway in rain, the car ahead, the whole insect tapestry shimmering. Memory precedes event, hence melancholy. Black grass of ancestor time, scratched with a needle. Great-grandfather, bird-eye, watching from the tree's beard. I do not receive your message, cannot break the codes of death, am wheeled day from day, watching the river, keeping score. Implausible connectives, the page fills, the issue is clouded. Mountain dreams again. He walks, already having knowledge that the experience will be unpleasant. Passes the hospital building, the grey length of it, above the bank of earth its towers, scrubwood to his right, railings. He turns then onto the hill, which is one of his key dream images. This walk, distance from the mountain, which is the home mountain, actual and something else also that frightens. The peak is never reached or fully attempted. The walk begins, now turns to the sheep track, undergrowth, dark, a tangled push forward. He lifts. I am above the valley, the hospital where death is occurring. Rain, I am above the valley, or grown, legs rooted but lengthened, where death is occurring. Seams of body light parting. Night, stars, lights of the town, a shattered beaker gleaming. Where is the fear that freezes him back to other consciousness, that ends this report? I want it, everything that is not here, and everything that does not answer to now, and everything wants this wanting, so that the lack of comfort becomes a fixed definition. The pain is unremitting, doesn't want to bend into irony or floods of local colour, won't be shifted more than 2 inches from the skin, can't be talked down to, coheres, makes sense. He has to find the words to keep pace. It is briefly night again. Sun climbs its ladder, drops on his head. It could begin to stutter or break into a Bergman cry for the love of God, the rape and commingling with the divine drill head. He hopes it's not that. All bets are covered with an incredible system of side stakes, double-entry bookkeeping, the unconfessed use of public buildings as symbols of safety. If he can look all day at the alternating facets of St. Anne, he is safe, it is safe. Then what did that moon dream mean, and why does he feel his eardrum beating through his cheek? Why can't he bear to sit still when his mother talks? If only it would fade into a rain dance, like that 3 minutes sheltering in the tractor shed, away from the shovels of topsoil, when the waters beat out of the sky and he was able to draw breath and the murderous calm was splintered and wind came, shoving the cloud train clear for that evening hour, the golden hour of Hollywood legend, when he feels sick to be out and goes out and feels sick to feel good, knowing that he must be sick again. Big meal. Her legs go upwards into eternity and well out of focus. The red buttons are stages distinct as f-stops. Look how the full moon becomes an area strongly linked with the horn antennae of this snail crossing our path, Keats Grove. Sublime bedroom preserved, the tiles of lung blood confirming the pure status of his quotable formulations, the cases of sustained emotion. We can gaze with a whole body of lust across the table, the libidinous plates, the Upmann cigar and German wine, the lies shield a condition of secrecy that needs all his 5-litre cunning, and is the holiest mood he can summon in the heat of the matter between them. They wait on a cold platform. It does not chill. The truce of love, the modular basket they share, watching fish in an air-hose tank, spending money free, as the bubbles break, the longing between them of the ancient dead generations to mate again and be born. Death is the fuel we are using up, its smell not unlike petroleum, sickness, the tree plug drains, sky, colour of vein tissue, too much melodrama, churchyard lunches, picnic against the pyramid at your risk. The absurd late-night horror film is oracular, puppet theatre truths. Charlie asks for the names of the trees. The woman in the game remains on the side of life, but she's gone. The plan of viewing F.W. Murnau's Sunrise is shelved in hollow body collapse. Swallow the commercial maggot and acknowledge the responsibility is Mayan. Feel his heart under a red shirt. Sunstroke spews up a snake's head. It stares from his mouth. The black plans are shelved also. Acknowledge the heart's enlargement, the screech of unclassifiable gulls. Heart does sing to be part of the fire chorus, consumed, standing on its legs, a spider in the cave, a blue plastic bowl at the bedside. He will not be sick. Work is a telephone call away. Obey the warning in your teeth. Trust your instinct if you can find it. If the bodies are empty, cloud vapours of the spin-off dialogues are thicker than speech. We all adjust over the stadium, the missing spire, the half-circle of border ditch around Limehouse, keeping out the histories of Mile End, Ratcliffe, Poplar, laneways weighed under different gases. The encroaching fen, the speed of the time of the place changes. Now I am frighted in retrospect by a glimpse of the original wood, Hawksmoor's staircase rising from the recently sealed porch, unvarnished grain of a parallel universe. There is also Hablot Brown's etching, strong ground, to be here is wide enough. Understand the spreading of the clouds, the noise of his tabernacle, endure, listen, at the mercy of cattle replays, open fields, Egypt the unredeemed. Today, Arthur called Charlie out to witness a double rainbow. I remain in the bike shed, finger paws irreversibly black, the nearest coast of darkness. West light. West is the body. It is the circumference. A surge, an input of snakes' heads. How dip your hand in such a well? Stones in a skin, diamonds, black on the adder's nape, his shoulders, sleeping by the road fringe, Salisbury to Warminster, the A303, red wadding, west of Stockton Wood, his head to the thaw, Old Sarum, an early sun heats the pattern. Light alternates, wide horizons stretch the small retinal conceits, anchor the moment. Detonated clouds, mammal slow, train or bus, window panel filled with landscape, nunnery. Atmosphere is more than the staining filter across tree, the lichenous, mossy, distorted light pulse of evening. The angle narrows, the illumination of essence increases. Sticks beat on the oily cloth of water. Two swans hammer back, straining to lift direct at the taw. We have circumnavigated the profile of the sleeper, the snake path worn into his cheek, though it is not as simple as that, more radical, stronger. Wind follows the diagram of the tree, all those directions, pigeon, woodpecker and messenger owl, along the avenue of cortical dark, green growth to Butley Wood, dry detonation of escape, as the sentinels lay false track over the twilight fields. It is the owl, the swooping, white, archaic span, gone from his feathered hourglass repose, of verge to verge tactility, powerfully sensing all small movements. Place is the expansive possibility, is the work and design of a simple banked form, or the hidden intricacies of stone, blue lias, purbeck, hieratic forms in decay, faces gone, the black, bituminous tomb sleepers who have tasted the holy thorn, dumb in the throat, faces burnt away to a stump, staring up at God, the directed vaulting beyond mason's mark and brand into cold divinity. The beasts are here too, crouching at foot or picking the skin clean, carving a mystique of initial into ivory finish. Colour, throat, red. The cleft of the bishop's mitre gapes again like the adder's mouth. Your steps will discover how it was laid out, what there is, migrant, following whatever essence of self survives as trace, survives the killing of lesser cattle, the sealing off, scalding of impulse. Draw out the white immaterial thread from my fingernail to your heart, from the imagination of your first magnitude star to my foot on the earth. Water flask filled at the public toilets, Glastonbury, where graffiti speak of shriller needs, convictions, demands, appeals. Genuine, ascending into the mist of Clay Hill, the man-made, the weathered, the pounding out empty forces of the natural, and it is beyond. We get through it. The chain is visible. The crown is a physical, achievable levitation. The long possibilities of the land, the quartz potential in the stone, the sightings, the tidal rollings in turf. Cheek is scoured by salt in the wind, boots bricked with mud, a return is made, and the hold on the compass released. So the blade cuts away at the knees. We stagger out onto the causeway, and there is only more of everything, of all paths, all directions. What is to be discovered has gone and is coming. Conversions, translations, secrets buried in the crosiered luminescence of the grub curled on my collar, of the fox mask eaten by maggots, tail picked clean like a whip of bone, stoat on Longleat verge, bounding hares of the Ridgeway, or the earthing, colonising rabbits of Cadbury Castle. The sound of the West is here in the prime syllable, in the utterance Arthur, as taught to the unlanguaged child, as wide as that, as eager, reluctant. The spine packed solid with chalk, peat giving body to the blood, transformation of all growing things. Man of use only to stand between, for passages of force of light, of impulse, between sky and earth. His margin eye for tracks of the original beast, ancestor. His wrist to reach out, holy fire in the well, to blind white flame on the thorn, wounds of sanctity, martyrdom of travel, the roads of bone, the paths of death, swerves the gull, alerts the nerve. Static water does not splash the sleeper. Shell crushed underfoot. Greedy snail works out time. The ram's horn. To your knees, to the ground, face pressed deep into the midden, that you rise, that you lift, that the wind pulls at your hood, face into the peaty distillations, the bungalow, carriage lamp steak bars, housing estates, that you rise into bandage, lapdog, lorry and wire, pull the barbs through your skin, that you rise, man-trap, scattergun, tractor and spray, that you see, tarmac, pig and poultry, even dry dog turd in the sarcophagus, tape recorder, flash, anorak, that you climb the hill, that you make bone into elastic, that you wind your entrail around the path, that you face the wind and hold, that you rise and fall down along the whole molten track of sun, that you rise, that you rise, that you rise out of, rise into, what hills, Wales, the distance. Slade and the Tyrannicides. I once heard that John Dillinger's cock was in the Smithsonian. No one waved goodbye, a casualty report on rock and roll. From the peak, from the purpling, cabbage leaf frenzy of God Cloud, moving down and close, voluntarily abandoning the detached, patrician levitation of viewpoint, it is through the eye of the scryer we see the event darkly, peaty milk thinning in the lens. Long ago it is happening, the blood veins that stretch, frozen sap erecting the tree fringe. Feast of Purification, February the 1st, sacred ground, ridged and hard, crust seals the earth heat behind Waltham Abbey, prepared ground, marked ground, the white emanations of the corpse of Harold, Battlefeld, Earl King, Harold Godwinson, bitter in his crude empiric of survival, in his gaunt mythology of chainmail, skull stripped as if by parasites, he shines like a chalk saint. The thin shaft in his eye socket is the periscope we use. Root tendrils, fine hairs, feather the wood, lift towards the informing sun. The ash-scalded tip presses on his brain nerve. The feather has flowered. Autopsy of linked metals, corrosion, treachery, forsworn impulses of wrist, water hand. Error of history enters the chronicle. Vows taken upon false bones. The rat sanctified. Harold's leather helmet is the invisible tent in which the meat is arranged, foretold. What Arthur is to the west, Harold is to the east. His acts, an unclaimed leprosy, shifting yellow to brown, red to blue, purple to green, fungoid poison cultures in the ground, white alkali, rings of expanding decay. The alignment of these two mythical graves, burial places of the twinned heroes, saviours of the compass, A and H, spear-crowned or gate-stanced giants, gravel beds of English soil mark the limits, pin down a force field, Glastonbury to Waltham Abbey, where the light is born, where the light dies, traps for the unwary, map references for the unbodied spirits. Victims of ego falter, hurdled blade men, partially roused syntax, stuttering in stratum, or dragged out into veiled lamplight, civet-infested parlours of West Acton, vegetable shadows of Kensal Rise fall across bed-sitting-room tables, as Arthur Machen discovered, no escape from the maze of selfhood. But now, by slow flume, by Lee River, has Slade abandoned his weapon. In marsh grass, lonely snaking stride, out of his cantref, the moulded plastic boots, scratched by thorn, the overcoat heavy with burrs, away from the building, north, risk, towards the fen place, the death plains of electromagnetism, generated among the stone teeth at Land's End, the surf force and the tide rhythm, the decay among brackish waters circling Ely Cathedral, pus in the dragon's eye. Slade under the hoop of low clouds, hunched and melancholy. His morbid doubts, diet of cheap fats, a dim sun fear, balances the throbbing, hard-red pulse of his meat. It stands up like a mast, his scarlet sex-horse, his constant, purple-headed lodestone. By the compass of his prick he can walk one direction only, north, to pole star, magnetic, dragged, into maelstrom, into suicide, into convulsive therapy. Mind unoccupied, his cock jerks like a douser's rod, springs upward with such force as to bruise his chest, beaten as blue as lead. And this is his response to landscape, violent, snatching. His pride cements his fear. Already they are coming at him. He has made them manifest. The Titanic mob from Nile Road, the Sabinis from Clerkenwell, the Crays, the Richardsons from over the water, Jack Comer, a.k.a. Spot, Billy Hill, the Tibbs family and the Nicholls, the Upton Park mob, the Nashes, voodoo gangs, packs, savage for territory, for land space, skull space, for the sealed passageways of the labyrinth, for ox heat. They run at each other, wolves without heads, animals rolling towards the fire, claws tearing out flesh, gouging for eye, belly, fur, pelt. Cannibal impulses shifted into dynamite, paint stripper on white Mercedes, docker's hook and 7-pound hammer, metal toe cap, flashing sparks in pub yard, lead-filled hosepipe in car park, torso on river mud, 48 numbered segments of the body scattered, 48 cuts, a single vitalizing sentence. The stars splashed with blood, the stars are swallowed teeth. They took Slade and broke the bones of his hand. This was on the landing outside his door. He fixed on the design of the handle, a shell, steel pins inserted after they had delivered him to the hospital. His hands are spiders made from the ruin of blackout umbrellas. No word, the direction of his compass unbent. They slid a sawn-off shotgun into his trouser leg, half comic like a ferret joke, and blew away the flesh of his calf, the muscle missing the target, shooting blind, a scatter of pellets he still carries, affecting his personal magnetism. The scryer falters, ad-libs, goes onto automatic pilot, repeating the familiar heroic elaborations of his tale. He is hooded, in pursuit of the hair of the East, of Slade, Gauss pulse racing, sick in belly, in pursuit of language. Counter needle hits red, pursuit of moon's curve, finely smoothed orbit, inconsistent wobble, running out of air, cold hands, as if held in invisible water trays, staggering blind between narrowing ditches, the wriggled and excavated snake path, but the track is cold, Slade's power is his lack of passion. Primed but dead, he is sad, but he is not angry. The pursuit is despair. Do not call it suicide. It is the mere act of following a track, an odour. He sniffs the ground, pokes among dry dog turds, for evidence of the great beast's journey, for some bright fur patch, an illuminated stool, metamorphosed into rock totem or milestone. Disease halts the will so that time flashes. These are his insights. Look down. Between two river tongues, Slade is walking. His curve flatters the clock. The sky lengthens, a yawn. Ribs of cloud support this cage over Hackney marshes. Slade, whose pride is a silent thing, whose will pushes him into the cone of chance. He is as stupid as a tragic hero, though not as tall. He recognizes no aspect of himself that he can alter. Believes in predestination and the police force. His foot has been set on the long bridge to suicide headlines in the East London Advertiser. A weapon is purchased and carried hard, but it will not serve. This is what is meant by stupidity. He did not recognize the futility of duplicating his personal totem. Nobody carries a metaphor who is one already, erect and standing. One letter from the protein alphabet, a key of brass. This is too facile and opposed by his blood system as it flows in the reverse direction. Impotence, world picture fragmented, Slade tosses the obstruction into the dark water, Doe's Mary Pool by Enfield Lock. An hermaphrodite arm rises to catch the polythene-wrapped bundle. Women's hair, seaweed, slime-covered shoulders. Slade feels his shaft dig. He stands in the expanded calm of false spring morning. The light rolls in from the east, tree-bruised. Wind, bitter channels taste of sea. Invader breath. Compass blade stabs his liver. Slade reclining on Harold's tomb, waiting. Circles of excited magnetism run through the ground, trap him. Thermal headaches, the mouse frozen in his skull, Cargo, self-delivered for judgment, Slade waits on his fate, an extra. His will cannot run, his spine stiffens as the damp rises. The grail wash of Tennyson's beard surrounds him on all sides. The lapsing, inert glide of solar winds, dust decay of Rosicrucian ideal forms a ghostly aura or ectoplasmic bowl around his head. Hoops of candlelight limp out from Slade to the water and the forest to be received at Borley Rectory. Steiner approves. Overhead is the well-documented UFO track, southwest, northeast, frantic as the Heathrow pentagram, the operation of sound, air released to the frequency of MERSEA, which Slade reads accurately as mercy, the Whitechapel word, final mystery and attainment of Sir William Gull's room. So the sightings fade beyond Thorpless Oaken and sink into tide mud at Mersey Island, flickering light along deserted roads, whirring spiral gyres above the recumbent victim. Mercy, initiatory Magi gift, resin, Merdsea, waste sludge of salt dyke, haunt of Koipu. Mixing, inland gulls hover for industrial scraps, but the celestial wound passage is opened and Slade reads the history of his own death. The tyrannicides arrive. Inside the enclosed tropic car heat, fans blowing out essence of jackal, chicken feathers, red mud, Olduvai bone fragment is the oracular head of Alfredo Garcia, a whisper in fly swarm, in muscat sand, in the swift tongues of decomposition. Excess of wisdom has made them mad, has dyed the skin, tanned them the colour of saddle leather. Dead meat is changed into sound, dense insect squabble, speaking in tongues. Their blood is malarial fast. Livingston pallor, shivering, brandy and salt tablets, hand and hile, brass-knuckled tyrannicides. The head is also the enclosed nuclear box, chest of desert secrets uncovered by Ralph Meeker at the end of Kiss Me Deadly, when the last, what remains of the Grail impulse in its most corrupted form, greed, triumph, curiosity, springs the lid, releases the power. The voice cone inverts, mushroom suck of indrawn breath over poison ocean, howl of torture camp, roars into metaphor, lion, beast heat, flame mane, Babylon. The siren speaks all destruction, all the images of sudden death, violent knowledge. The white truth is strapped with leather thongs, with sturdy clasps of brass into Reich's accumulator. It rides like the scrolls of the prophets, like an ark hidden by migrant tribes. Or is it simply a sack of muslin through which Garcia's profile prints like an identikit relic, like the Templar Christ, like penal colony maps? An L. Ron Hubbard disaster key of earthquake and plague that will destroy the universe by introducing a new concept of time? Is it the final tongue of brass torn from the serpent? It rests on Hyle's lap. It speaks the whole cantos of Ezra Pound, including the false starts and the Roman broadcasts, Martian hymns, the Kabbalah, Gregorian chants, death songs of defeated Plains Indians, stock exchange quotations, Presley's first cut for Sun Records, Northumbrian pipes, everything reduced, squeezed, synthesized to one finite buzz. And then it is locked, sealed, clamped. This is the power beneath hand. This is why the earth scorches, ahead of the limousine. The skid path advances, runs out like a water spray, and is obliterated, dissolves as the car passes, invisibility. The door swings open like a safe. Outstep the owners in masks of scalped pig, blood-crowned hand and hile. In their own hot wind, the sting of Africa, rhino horn attached to forehead, fly whisk, They are enclosed in personal sandstorms, furious vortex, questions, accusations are latent, unspoken. The tragedy cannot get into gear. The miracle play remains a potential without text. The craftsmen are absent. The audience is distanced, complacent, egoic attention, half-hearing, repulsed by syntactic crudities. It does not touch them. But the speed from car to Slade is frenzy, garbled rush of Orphic mysteries, messenger who cannot get the speech performed in the allowed interval. Kings do not speak or move, hand and Hyle float on wooden platforms. Peachy is the voice of Hyle. The act of hand is Hutton. An axe rests on his slanting shoulder. The summoned, acknowledged gods are hidden in septic cloud. Crocodile, bear, and tiger float through the storm. Mercy, a carpet spread on the church roof for the judges, a pit appearing in the ground, more of hell for the devils. Hand and Hyle drifting in dim skies are mistaken for mercy UFOs. Policemen fall from their bicycles. The wash of this unachieved event stains Essex. Sawdust tableau infinitely repeating. The pest hand rises from murky waters to receive the arc of the abandoned revolver, the oiled metal, the caves of incubation that revolve, bullet projectiles sleeping. The focus of Slade's genital pride freezes action. Nothing happens, but Essex is cancelled. Slade's murderous double sets foot for Braintree. German bite. An excitement of too much. The hands of the junkie, not as spectacular as the hands of Orlac, but as much of a functioning instrument, guiding the hit into what's left of the thinking machine. As if talking could be anything more than talking. The world unsettled and not remade. Too many reports of books, telephones, visions, explaining the usury theory while eagerly demonstrating it. Blood under the skin and paper dirt on it. Street detail. Autistic poses, alive but past recall. Her heels, worn raw, 2 bacon-coloured patches, dollar-sized. Black Crombie, collar turned up and covered in white dog hairs. I haven't been well. Damp, snuffling ahead, dry rasping cough behind. The shopping precinct disappears into a glass screen. This safe has a time-delaying lock. Our official, no Brahmin, low caste as an umpire, shovels out the reluctant benefits. On his wall, a map of London cut off at the Thames, so that the South is not merely unknown, it doesn't exist. Hurricane drummers, self-aid in Haggerston. Ronnie Cray is now in Broadmoor, and brother Reggie in Parkhurst, from where he's trying to get a security firm called Rockdrill off the ground. There's a mob of rumours from south of the river, challenging the wood and shattering the glass with drop kicks honed on GLC grant aid. The trainers stamp out likely prints of light, moth-shaped entries. Another team of semi-skilled dips work the precinct and dry clean my licences, cards, and small collection of folding royal portraits, allowing them to collect on unconvincing promises. A couple of vehicles are cased, a couple crowbarred. In reply, the locals can offer a squad car of handy lads looking for Lefty, cruising on new tyres that give the game away, authentic as any red-light disco tip-out. Employment prospects look good for the wolf importers, the cross-breeders of beasts with more jaw than brain. The bells, charm out in celebration. New aerobic souls flash, high-knee torsion around the corner of Queensbridge Road. "Hey, what is it about this place?" says the Reverend suddenly, looking out of the window at a group of black youths as we approach Dalston. "They're smoking reefer on the street." "Music is music," says Cleveland, returning to the subject. "It's the words that separates gospel from the rest. Only the words." In the latest proof of Ackroyd, a quarter-inch to the west of fibres, hair, ash, burnt paper, a small insect has died, 4 legs attached, the 5th and 6th a mere stain. Their substance on the opposite page, solitary, a quarter-inch to the east of disconcerted Hawksmoor. He called for a roll of adhesive tape. Kristallnacht. When Soutine finally consulted an ear specialist about the terrible earache, in the canal of the painter's ear, the doctor discovered not an abscess, but a nest of bedbugs. "Escape with the children, but escape them we cannot, will not draw up beyond this breath, beeswax burning in an old tin cup. Break the ring with a child's soft head before it is too late. It is already. The fear is a glove turned, waxed smoke. Burning honey evoking a woman's blood does not arouse. It terrifies us. And the protection, which is this room, marked with its posts, becomes a place of torment. The children we discover in ourselves are drained, stars only on the outside of their lids, and the unfractured night runs wild as a scalded dog." Scraps and green heaps. Opposite the scrapyard and across the river, we were walking apart but calmly in the same direction. Shingle, noise linked to the anger of a spurned machine, a movable grab, producing nothing more than a satisfied crunch, digested automobiles, cancelled traffic. The threat disturbed your sense of occasion hardly at all. The few yards of clear sand, a finite shelf of pebbled eggs, fragments of green glass, well worth the picking over, and thus too far beyond our means. Losing sight of the river itself, stoking our appetites on a crust of pink fish meat, blue oil, smoke persuaded from a lettuce leaf. No call to go further, and we came back, well over the limit, a sidelong glance at the morbid stalk of Canary Wharf, then at it like a whole tray of bright cutlery, exploiting opportunity, metal buffers clanging in appreciation of the hurricane's diminishment. Want it enough, and you can have it all. Nil by mouth. Among the unfumigated lungs of the poor, naked ears unboiled, brazen hoops piercing thin cartilage, as they plod towards allowance, pension, virgin cash, bang goes the punch, promises, promises, shuffle in on themselves, the glass, next one, elbows forward in case it should all turn out to be exactly what it is, just another paper fraud. Are Lee Harwood's clients anything like this? Wanting a mere stamp to ship a book seems decadent and extreme. Lives of the not quite desperate, ourselves, coughing the dust of official sanction, too far gone to appreciate the counterclerk's excessive shirt, John Cage doodles, scoring the chorus, gobbing, sputum expulsion, the dim, the dull, the reversed scene. Necks of knotted flesh, horsetail hair, tied with silly rags, the only place where there is world enough to write. The Carnal Gate, hitman in a private garden. As the circuit of the garden is an oval sentence, with its staging posts, pet's graveyard, draw breath, sit on the wet slats of a white bench, celebrating a spring shower or the gardener's hose, when the climax of meaning tips the alcove news of Charlie the Silent Man Wilson, already cooking the trumpet, spitting scarlet rumours across poplin sheets, how a pale youth rang the anniversary bell to gain access, walked him out towards the lapping pool, intent on a bit of business, landed first a sneaky blow, side of the nose, kneed him in the groin with enough force to show up on the pathologist's report, eased the oiled barrel immediately against or into his mouth, and blew away the roof of his skull. Henry James's holograph tended to droop towards the margin, black ink revisions, the famous library regathered. I can't recall a kinder evening. Setting sun over the red roofs, English ladies counting coin. Fearing a present absence, I strolled without knowledge. Charlie would be cremated along with a dog won in a poker game, their sympathetic ashes mingled. When my father's blue pen, pressed to service, gave up the ghost, I changed hands, reaching into the drawer the slim silver affair my wife gave me, again picking up on the original, a posthumous spurt, as if the bald nib had merely debated its rapid passage, the resistant grease of the notebook's lined page, a mortal strain trembling through my arm. Read my lisp. Let the crows with their cut-purse habits have it, the air, the oily grass, and all the meat the city spits out. Let them caw, mob-handed, gore-blimey, and selfish as old hoods, memory thieves in apple-green rooms obliging history. Let the crows expose themselves in bare trees, fat as gristle kebabs, and louder than something you bite alive. Let him have it, Chris. Colourless light, the blue bomber cap on the balcony, the ape-fit pensioner who used to lift shirts, a solitary Brill-cream dog abusing shelves, tastes his ink newspaper with uncivil tongue. It's our town, the crows know that. Chalk worms in the starry ground under a hung carpet of clistered smoke. Bunhill Fields. Secretly, he loved poetry. Tim Hilton on Clement Greenberg. The proximate fig shades a shale envelope. Writing, I have no intention of writing about this. Heavy leaves, green, fed with, grey, fed up between showers with being noticed, shadows where William and Catherine lie loose, disinterred, a glazed brown pot in clay, dead flower heads, flower-smelling water, incoherent autumn, sunlight free associating through stone flags, when the blonde child on her precocious red bicycle, what did you say they were called again? What did you say? Figs. Figs, figs, but do they have seeds? Confirmation speeds her certain way, balanced, 5 in hand, that might have ripened, juice on the vertical slab, unsteady from wine lunch, a mossy cushion, obelisks and peeled plaster faces, scarlet seeds on a thick black tongue. The exhibition I didn't hold at the Tate would have included 1. Half the pickled brain of Wyndham Lewis. 2. The mantle of Powhatan. 3. The Tredescant's missing ark. 4. The skin of Lord Archer's back with its prophetic moles. 5. A silent video of J.H. Prynne's famous lecture on Willem de Kooning's rosy-fingered dawn at Louse Point. 6. Jeremy Bentham, mummified in a Perspex panopticon. 7. The River Thames. World's oldest comedian is dead. Barbers are murdered in the night, Gregory Corso. Walking through wet wheat, an ocean of mercury after the storm's head had snapped in the wound, a blunt spike driven deep into brain jelly, geography of desire, sperm tails photographed as galactic reductions, fetishes and footsore hyphens, delightful shoes, neck braces and mandrakes preserved in smoky bottles, disengage, alchemy and the alchemist, red sand, Russian in name only, sour silk drenched under coarse surge, comrade commissar, give us a twirl, vile, officer-class peons with cow shit on their boots perform in flawless French while swilling wine-glasses whole, best read, fin, on the broad screen. A word, not a bite, a signal to pull back that ungloved hand from its almond oil trespass. The tongue from the cheek. It spells refreshed light outside the fire door, shaken into coats, rain-stalled, horn buttons undone, a loose belt, odd legs negotiating the cobbled slope beneath an undistinguished church. A shark in the shallows of a coffee shop, mirrors everywhere, new underwear discreetly disclosed before it is discovered and distressed. Another disappointing rhubarb brulee as preamble to permitted violation. The ghost of a girl in the doorway of a small hotel, thanking us for not contributing to her relief. The cocky Irishman scoring a quid hard coin at the traffic lights. Heraldic spoon twirling the coffee rust to glacial sand. My ignorance has been well preserved. Continuous sky for Lee Harwood. A light green coat moves commonly east, uninspired but up for it, a shifty sky with its rouge theatre stacked in golden curls, cold enough for fingerless gloves. Can you believe the poet is now a wine bar in Mitre Street, and how does 6 Irish oysters with soda bread at £7.80 grab you? Or seaweed-cured salmon at £5.50, backed by a slab of good Galway Tay bread and butter. The poet is effortlessly divorced from the poem, like the abuser from Mother Church. No solitaries with red notebooks, no silver paint like Stephen Rodefer's decadent nails. Business folk, women included, drip Chardonnay on small round tables. Yellow and blue, they have decided, will stand as poetry's flag. The motif offers coherence to a fragmented cityscape, with many obstacles for pedestrians to surmount, keeping the trek interesting, hurdle fences, tarmacked mud, carbonized angels in their dim recesses, Byzantine tesserae, glinting blood and rubies, unredeemed nimbuses, the run to Cable Street hobbled, minor league minories, and it hits me, flashing to the backstory, that poet is another way of saying Irish. Twisted window slats that were once blind, only in the square mile are churches heated and open, incensed. Ralph Clay Esquire of Hackney, who in his 65th year of his age closed an honourable and useful life. Browse nautical charts before swinging left to where the Seaman's Library used to stand on the corner of Dock Street. Now, as you rightly suppose, Ludlow Thompson residential sales, blue again, and the old gold yellow, one-bedroom apartments of a type that might once have seemed under white emulsion desirable to romantics who read French verse and like to blend Gauloise, goat curry and sewage outflow from the foreshore, Supremes on the jukebox and the mythical hooting of tugboats on the Thames, all bollocks, like imported sand making a south end of Tower Bridge. Nothing has gone that was ever here. Freakish ceramic cod, the dive with the movie star collages, and the sign that leads the discerning stalker to Wilton's Music Hall with its astonishing pink door, pomegranate and pineapple panels, the deep eros of purple impinging on blushing labia. Big Love shuttered to the blarney screech of Fiona Shaw emoting the lifeblood out of the wasteland. The phrases of the afternoon or early morning, he wrote, finally do make a life full turn. Quiet vortices of Bengali kids, Post-economic migrants, unschooled in well-closed square, are shepherded towards asymmetrically lit tower blocks, cloud shavings soluble in the still water of the font. Bright chatter, long black coats, swishing against the pull of the L, bones, skulls, books, deals, compasses, confectionery loud as third world toothpaste, hospital mosque poverty pit, getting, holding, moving on, coming back, none the worse for what has been attempted and abandoned. Risk knowing and not knowing, never knowing when, why, and where to turn on your heel, switch off, go home. The lightning ball. The soul, however, in metempsychosis, will inhabit other bodies, be they animal or human, and some will return full circle back to heaven. The old gentleman is standing in his garden, a photograph, a postcard of his father, bearded, sitting on a high-backed wooden chair, brought out for the occasion, dead. The boy at his side, features unresolved on this dark night, pudding basin cut, the kitchen, his mother, coarse towel, flinching, arms folded, jacket leaking light, brown gold. He scrutinizes the person in black, brought here to record this moment, his father and his earlier, more ancient self. The night is cold, the ground, the air damp. The old gentleman is underdressed. A neutral observer would have every reason to feel alarmed. Furniture for the most part gone, chopped into firewood. He sleeps in a greasy bag in front of the fire. The fire has failed. The bath, advanced in its day, is black as coal, sticky, a scene illustrating spontaneous combustion. There are also colour prints from a throwaway camera, bought at a petrol station. Concerned relatives let in are shocked. It is just as they had imagined. 90 years, 30 years alone, top dressing of meat grease on the still orderly rows of books, body dust, ash, articulate smoke, saturating paper. The books, unburnt, aspire to the condition of peat, fuel. They are heavily annotated, but unconsumed. It is dark, night, but he pushes the darkness back. It opens before him. He feels for cracks and channels. Man and house understand one another. Neither could be described as being in the first flush. Both were born on this ground. There were rumblings out over the sea. He felt the first heavy spots of rain. No coat, no shoes. The police find him wandering, without name or coherent narrative, and being lucky in a fortunate part of the world he is taken in. He told the story to a nurse. "Do you know what a lightning ball is?" He didn't wait for the reply she didn't make. She was looking out of the window down the road, two women talking by a privet hedge, a red car parked, and a white van stopping outside another large converted property. Lightning has been recorded in the form of, or giving the appearance of, a string of bright beads. Several authorities, Wilson experimentally verified by Gott, see lightning balls as being associated in some way with this phenomenon. Explanations, the scientists admit, are unsatisfactory. The balls move slowly and are often distinguished as having a rosy appearance. She turned, poured him an orange drink, tidied the few objects on his bedside table. An electrical discharge in the form of a glowing white or slightly pink ball. It came down our lane, scorching narrow hedges, the blossom, as it had been as I remembered it in childhood. Tarmac, pedestrian crossing, high curbstones revoked. Lightning bowling like a hoop, an unusual but far from unique occurrence. He knew. This was an intelligence, the manifestation of an intelligence in which he was somehow implicated. The approach of the lightning ball, though not controlled by him, was controllable, eccentric. Its trajectory was personal. It meant, it advanced, burning, absorbing, without hurt, everything in its path, a fierce clarity. It challenged and redefined matter. but was itself immaterial. You saw it because it wasn't there. And in this act is seeing, you yourself become invisible, translated, plural. Over the scruffy grass, ground dug up by foxes, pecked over by rooks and magpies, over heavy, night-wet grass and bushes, it floated towards him. Now the rain, which had been beating down so remorselessly, mistaking this place for somewhere else, drenching him, stopped, or became unimportant. The ball of white light was intelligence, the sum of it, time, dirt, pain, the complex interrelation of objects and memories suspended. That day, this chair, his father. That's what he wanted the nurse, putting his book back into the drawer, brushing the sleeve of the unfamiliar jacket to know. There is no death, no period, between himself and his father. The photograph, both of them looking out, no temporal barrier, no younger or older, no argument. A man in darkness, pushing the lightning ball forward, and another closer to the house, drawing it in, so that it hovered, swerved, played, spun. There is something in this sober playfulness, something, an immaterial intelligence. Years of books, words, sticking to one place, unmarried, childless, last of the last, photographs in a red tin left in the house, taken away by the young women, the electrical and chemical discharges left by faces before photographs, how they come forward to shape an expression, to stand in the shadows. He smiled, he knew. Hollow cheeks, fingers running over thin stubble, send for a barber. He didn't know how to order a taxi. He understood. Movement as intelligence, limited, fallible, to be told, in this way, this place. Yes, dear, yes, the nurse said, and later, without making any special effort to remember, she wondered who she would tell. Body tourism. It's unimaginable. It'll come. Anita Bruckner. News of this season's war comes over the horizon without a ripple, blank as paper pulp, scorched hair, pork and petrol, ditches of hot black oil, lurid columns of smoke. 2 cars, broadside on the desert highway. We salute the Jack Nicholson option. Undead plus platinum credit. It takes quality sound to ruin such a morning. Shingle scraped and landscaped, Dutch wreckage. The poet in his too current self-disguise, a photograph to justify the hole in the page. He holds his spectacles in a very peculiar way. Meat gloves, old, as he is, eyeless, spooked for this casual acquaintance, blinking journeyman up from London, odd combo, diamond sweatshirt and rather slick, sharky jacket, tenderly merciful bite, surrealist tearaway, now elder statesman, extant. Let in, the sea doesn't care, the print is all bad. That poet, he hears gulls sneeze through glass. Yesterday's money. Private runways to the truth, Manny Farber. Who cleans the crease, cleans Kazan's shoes, so black and white, reflections of lamp black, the Chelsea Hotel telephone. Corridor rings dead Steinbeck, his photo-portrait, 2 success-filled, troubled men in an edge time of fresh white shirts, open at the neck, button-down free radical. Such downcast eyes play camera innocent. 1 filthy pipe. Desert-punished Marxists. Can you love the American dreamscape still? River Jews in celebrity hothouse, concerned about carpets. London labels, the just detectable weasel stink of grey-green dollars. Hand on hip, the carpenter, mink coffin man, the detective who shops street casuals, shoots out glass doors, The germ must be passed before midnight strikes. A letter from a drawer lined with newspaper. Memento Mori, London. Dim light swims in shoals, and soot moss fills the sockets of winged skulls. Dim is the still light, and never quiet under the slow lash of leaf. And forward, says the camera bag American. It was, after all, one of those gay melancholy who led me here, to his compadre passing through. The beehive is a wonder, scorch pattern of passing souls, bands of exposed flesh, ecstatic and brown, light dances in red hair. The cock-cock-coo of plump-necked pigeon birds, the spattered uneven paving slabs and high London plain, grandly scabby, other unseen creatures of flight. City, a kidney punch, the privilege of a slatted bench, while sweat dries on thin grey shirt, discover the multiple occupation of a single grave, standing room only. Margaret Jones, 37, Rhys Thomas, 53, Edward Sherwood, 53, William Blake, 69, Mary Hilton, 62, James Greenfield, 38, Magdalene Collin, 81, of Bethnal Green Road, and Rose Davis, 58. One recalled, one floral tribute in the wrong place. Amen. Beckton Alp. Cycle with Jock and hear the past told. Pylons, gates, cemeteries under a big sky. You smell the burnt rubber, not the shit, flood of London's waste. You're high, on the ridgeway, head in clouds. Jock remembers, dirt tracking, early tape, his kids, the immaculately leathered youth who stunted on the slope, outdid them all, on his one arm and specially adapted bike. Remembers sub-teens on the A13, unlicensed, catching the slipstream. Remembers Will Self's description of how his Volvo bent into metalled curves, steel as rubber. Remembers crushing oil cans for employment, Scotland. The point of a good view is that it should capture and give relief from the journey that led up to it. There are no good views in isolation, no empty frames, unwalked, uncycled, unearned. View is always an accident, a breathing space. Walking the pilgrim path of Joseph Bazalgette's northern outfall sewer, slantwise to the southeast, brings the traveller, if he times it right, afternoon, late in the season, up against the glorious absurdity of the Beckton Alp, a conical mound that can be ascended by a sequence of zigzag paths, resting places thoughtfully provided. The gentle climb, this compromise between human and mountain bike gearing, allows time for the weary pedestrian to warm down before the summit. He can play back the drift along the outflow, the brutally hacked verges, bright blue benches, the mustard brickwork serviced by miscreants from the next generation of spray-can bandits. Flash the frame. Memory is a wound, a pointlessly exotic pumping station. Channelsea Creek, with its anachronistic mudlarks, dredging for sovereigns in the age of post-Orwellian game shows. Electric hymns in low-slung cables. Our brains fried by electronic overload, idiot conversations in an acoustic meadow. The click of the wheel that works the empty ski lift mechanism. Traffic on an arterial road. Scimitars of sunlight flashing on curved windscreens. We were here for the eclipse. Jock is here now in his dark glasses. My great-grandfather crossed the Andes on a mule. By and by, the heart's action seemed to fail, and I suddenly collapsed, slipped off the saddle, and lay down on my back, my mule gasping for breath beside me. When I gradually came to myself, I could see around me the bones of many a good mule and llama, cleanly picked, while high in the air floated the ever-alert condor, said to be the largest and most powerful of all birds. But I was not just then in a mood to admire his proportions, nor appreciate his attentions, and gathering myself together again, with the help of a more fortunate companion, I moved on, but only for 50 yards, when I again fainted. This was repeated at least 50 times, till the crest was crossed, and some progress was made down the western slopes. The summit has it all. Now the pulse of the orange sun dissolves over an unreal city, Canary Wharf and Docklands, golden browns of Stanley Kubrick's imposed paddy fields, the old Beckton gasworks as Vietnam, Jock, dirt tracked around the perimeter of the set, full metal jacket, flaring scarlet brake lights on Newham Way, levels and counter-levels of traffic, hot for the estuary, heading home to dormitory estates on the rim of chalk quarries. The site is mythic, aligned with a lost mound of Whitechapel, the undiscovered culture of Silbury Hill. It's the best kind of fake, pre-fictional. It aspires to the language of television. Skiing for motorists, a rubber carpet with the texture of a little chef waffle, the commodification of transcendence, black smoke thick with sugar droplets from Tate & Lyle's Silvertown factory. Leaning on a creosoted railing, London makes sense. There's a pattern, a working design. There's a word for it, obscenery, blight, stuttering movement, the distant river. The time membrane dissolves in such a way that the viewer becomes the thing he is looking at. Jock's glasses reflect meltdown, dual carriageways, ramps and runoffs in 2 panels. Green rays of the setting sun strip flesh from the bone. He's done it. Vanished into a Ludwig Meidner apocalypse, an epic painting with an intensity he knows he will never achieve. So he settles for representation, bricks and mortar. The artist is redundant, as is the reporter, the photograph, the memory prompt, useless. We're still on the inside of the outside, searching for cracks, trapped in an envelope of tired flesh. View is raw and absolute and unappeased.